This conference will now be recorded.
So U1 will be considered as a child to D1 as well as the organization. So if we want to inherit any components into this U1, it will be possible only from D1 as well as the organization. So here organization is the one what we have created, like CHG is our organization name. If you see here, and division 1 and division 2. Similarly, U2 can able to inherit any of the components from D1, and vice versa is not possible. So here in this particular class, like organization, division, and U1, all these are related with some inheritance. So that type of inheritance is called as an pattern. I'll tell you what is pattern. So inheritance will be of two types. You understood the concept of inheritance, no? Inheriting the properties from its parent. So pattern and direct. So the pattern inheritance meaning inheriting of the components from its user defined classes. So here CHG. So this one, the first one, second one, third one, these three are related to user defined classes. Agree? And 7, 8, 9 are something like OOTB classes. Let me open the framework. It will be easy for you. Okay. So what I'm trying to just check for the inheritance of this framework var class. Here I can able to see like 1 is the child of 2, 2 is the child of 3, 3 is child of 4, and 5, 6, 7 are something like OOTB, which we have not created. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are something, the classes which are created when we are trying to create one application. So this is something what we have created. When we're trying to create one application, this class has been created, and this class also has been created by just making changes from our end, and even this way as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, these are something classes created by user. Do you agree with that? So any kind of inheritance between these user defined classes, that is called as an pattern inheritance. So pattern inheritance meaning inheriting of the components from the user defined classes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, here all these are user defined classes. So if I want to inherit any of the components into class number 1 from 2, okay, then the relation should be like pattern inheritance. So pattern inheritance meaning relationship between the classes if those are user defined classes. So if D1, here U1, D1 and organization, these three are user defined classes. So if I want to inherit any of the components into U1 from D1, that will be happening because of the pattern inheritance. And if I want to inherit any of the components in U1 from organization, even that is also possible, and that's because of pattern inheritance. Okay, so finally inheritance meaning inheriting of the components from its parent, and inheriting of components from its parent class. So the parent class here might be either user defined classes or the OOTB classes as well. So if I'm trying to inherit any of the components from the user defined classes, that will be considered as a pattern inheritance. The other thing will be like an direct inheritance. I'll tell you about that. So clear, no? Uma, Tumlani, both clear, no?
Yeah.
Okay. So in interviews also they might be asking you questions on this. Types of inheritance will be two types: pattern and direct inheritance. Pattern inheritance meaning inheriting of the components into that class from its parent class, and that parent class should be of user defined. So this is one of the class which has been created when we're trying to create one application that seems to be like an user defined class only, no? And there will be many classes other than user defined. Those will be called as an OOTB. So if I'm just trying to check for the inheritance of this framework per class, here 5, 6, 7. So these three are something related. These three are the OOTB which we have not created. So 1, 2, 3, 4 are something created based on the application name what we are giving, and 5, 6, 7. These three are something like OOTB. So any of the application you create, that has to be inherited from work dash cover dash. So that is what we have seen. So even if you create one implementation application, the immediate parent of that implementation application has to be work dash cover dash. If we create the framework also, by default the parent will be work dash cover dash, and work dash is something like parent to this work dash cover dash, and at the rate base class is the parent for this work dash. So by just comparing the inheritance of this framework work class and the implementation work class, we can able to identify work dash cover dash is the parent of this work classes. Okay, and this work dash cover dash is something what we have not created, meaning that will be considered as an OOTB, and here work dash will be parent of this one. So finally at the rate base class is the topmost class in both the things when you compare. So at the rate base class will be considered as a root class or the parent class in PEGA. So wherever we feel that particular component will be useful across all the applications. So this is for the framework. So if I want to create any kind of components that will be used only for framework, what I will be doing, I'll be creating it in the framework only. Okay. And if I want to create any kind of components that has to be used only for that particular implementation application, I'll be creating the components in that application only. And there will be cases where I have to use such some components across multiple applications, like framework application or the implementation application. If I have 4 or 5 framework applications also, so if I want to use any one of the component which will be useful across all the applications, then we can able to create it in the at the rate base class. Okay, why? Because at the rate base class is the topmost class where any of the class can able to access this. So one small example is send email notification. So this is one OOTB activity. I'll tell you what is activity when we're working on that. So there will be one component like send email notification. Sending an email, this might be useful across multiple applications. No, it might be useful in the implementation application or the framework or any of the classes. Then PRPC has come up with an approach and created this send email notification in the at the rate base class. So if any of the components that is available in this at the rate base class, I can able to reuse it anywhere. Whatever the class we have in PEGA, for that parent should be at the rate base class only. So just right click on this class, go to inheritance. We should be seeing at the rate base class as the topmost parent. So if we just check for this also, we will be having at the rate base class as the topmost parent. Okay, so we will be calling this at the rate base class as the root class, where any class in this PEGA can able to access this at the rate base class. So if we feel any of the component which will be common and which is meant for reusable across, we can able to create it here. So this is one such example we can able to understand easily, no? So send email can be used across multiple applications. That's why PRPC has come up with this Java code. So if you open this, we'll be having this Java code. So we need not bother about this coding, that's secondary. So this particular activity will be used across this at the rate base class. So that's the importance of at the rate base class. So there will be components where I have to reuse from at the rate base class, or I should be using some components from the work dash cover dash. Likewise, there will be many components where I can able to reuse this from the OOTB classes. So if I want to inherit any of the components from this OOTB classes, that type of inheritance will be called as an direct inheritance. So got my point? So if you want to inherit any of the components between user defined classes, then that will be considered as a pattern inheritance. And if we are trying to inherit any of the components from OOTB classes like this one, that will be considered as an direct inheritance. So if we just check for the inheritance of this, so here we can able to see 1 is the smallest child and 7 is the parent. So 1 is the child of 2. So 1 and 2 both are user defined classes. How this should be connected? Pattern. So 1 is connected to via inheritance called pattern. So 2 is connected to 3 via inheritance called pattern. And 3 and 4 are connected by pattern. And 4 and 5 So 4 is some OOTB, sorry, user defined class, and 5 is OOTB class. How 4 and 5 are related? Directed. Okay, you got my point? So if I want to construct any of the relationship between user defined classes, that should be pattern inheritance, and the inheritance between user defined classes and the OOTB classes, that should be direct inheritance. So that is the concept. So these two are the types of inheritance. So if you want to just check for the inheritance of any class, just right click on the particular class and go for inheritance. We can able to identify. So based on that, we can able to reuse. So just to check for the definition. So I'm trying to check for the definition of this framework work class. So here for the framework work class, immediate parent should be work dash cover dash. Now here we can able to see the immediate parent. So if you just click on definition of this class, we can able to check for the immediate parent. So the immediate parent of this framework class will be work dash cover dash. And if I want to access, if I want to check for this work dash cover dash, I can able to do that. Why? Because this framework will be considered as a child to this work dash cover dash as per the inheritance. So if I am the child, I can able to get complete access over my parent components. So this is one of the parent of this. No, so if I want to just check for this thing, I can able to open it from here. Okay, so now we will be getting the definition of this particular work dash cover dash. So this is all just for your information. That's it. You need not, if you are not getting, I mean, if you will not be using this in the real time mostly, this thing work dash cover dash and work dash. So this might be useful in your interview. That's what I'm telling you. So for this work dash cover dash, immediate parent will be work dash. No? So I can able, this will be considered as a one of a parent to this. If I want to open this, I can able to do it directly from here. And for the base class, work dash will be the child of base class. This is what we can able to see. If I want to just open this base class also, I can able to check for the definition of this base class. And for here, there will not be any parent for this. This is the topmost parent. That's why this will be kept blank here. Okay. So this is the concept here. So at the rate base class is the topmost parent, and work dash cover dash, work dash will be the immediate child, and work dash cover dash is the child of that. And from there only class groups will be inherited. So clear so far? So if we are clear, we can able to continue the next concept. Any doubts? So you got the types of inheritance and what is inheritance and the types of classes.
Yeah, there are one is predefined and another one is user defined. The user defined we call it as pattern inheritance.
Yeah, relationship between user defined classes we call that will be happening because of pattern inheritance. Okay. And technically we should be calling this as an OOTB, not the predefined. In PEGA we should be calling this as an OOTB.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you any relationship between OOTB and our user defined classes, that in type of inheritance should be directed.
Okay.
And Tulani, you also clear now?
Yes, sir.
So now we'll move on to the next concept. Like we'll just start working with one sample web application creation. So we have seen the basic concepts of PEGA, like what is inheritance and what types of classes. Now we'll start designing our web application. In our web application, what we have to do, this is complete medical insurance application. So initially we have to capture few details from the customer. If this particular application has been gone live, if it is went for the live, the first thing what they will be doing, they have to get the customer details first. So this is our policy, insurance policy application. So first we have to register our customer with us. Then after we have to get his policy details, his beneficiary details, his treatment details, and if he is trying to claim some bills with us, we can able to do that. So this should be our application. And the first thing what we want to do here today is we will be creating one registration form. So the customer has to register with our insurance application like CHG. So in order to create one registration form, the basic things what we will be doing, we will be first capturing his, the first thing is we will be uploading one image, like our organization image, whatever the thing we want to do, we can able to do. So that should be part of registration, like welcome to our organization, there should be some image uploaded. Next thing what we'll be doing, we'll be just asking for his first name. So there should be one field capturing for the first name property. And similarly, we will be asking for his last name and his age, gender, and mail ID. So usually this control will be of text box, and this also text box. And age also we can able to put one text box. And gender usually will be having drop downs, drop down values with male or female. Okay. So if the customer don't want to disclose his age also, we can able to put that one placeholder for that. We'll do that. And mail ID also will be having one text box and phone number. So these will be the basic details what we'll be capturing. So in PRPC, you forget about the image as of now. So in order to have these basic details capturing in our website, what we'll be doing, first we have to create one label for that, and then after we have to create one control text boxes, radio buttons, check boxes. This will be considered as in controls. Let me put date of birth also. I want to show the calendar as well. So first we have to put the labels here, and then after we have to put the controls. We have to put 7 labels and 7 controls. As discussed in PRPC, everything got automated like controls. So we need not write any coding for this text box controls. Earlier in HTML, when we are trying to use HTML, we have to write our input tags. So hash input tag, then only we can able to create the controls. But now in PRPC, all these controls got automated. We need not write any code for these controls. We'll just drag and drop this. So PRPC will be taking care of all these controls. We need not bother about this. So particular control has to be given with particular name, no? So we call this as in labels, but technically these are called as in properties. So property is one rule where we can able to capture the input. So we have to create one property for the first name, last name, gender, age. So likewise, we have to create 7 properties first. So properties can be created under data model category. I'll tell you about that. So once we create the properties, so once this design has been completed, what we'll be doing usually in the HTML or anywhere, we will be putting all this code into one division tag. So if you're not familiar with this HTML also, no issues. We'll be putting everything in one container kind of thing. So if we just compare here, so this will be considered as in one container. You can able to see this, no? So this is considered as in one section, one different thing. So likewise, we have to put all this in one container kind of thing, and technically we call this as a section. So first one property rule has to be created. 7 property rules are to be created here in order to capture all these fields. And if you are getting a business requirement of capturing more fields also, those many properties are to be created. So once we are done with the property creation, the next thing what we have to do is we have to put all these properties in one container kind of thing, and that technically we called it as a section. So one section rule is also to be created. So property is one rule and section is another rule. So one section rule has to be created, and in that section rule we will be putting all these properties. Okay. So once the section is created, what we have to do, we have to take one action on that. So that particular section has to be loaded. Without we are taking one action on that particular section, it is not possible to load the section. So one action has to be taken, and technically we call this as an flow action. So one flow action rule is to be created. So the concept of we creating each and everything, and the customer has to register with us. Once the customer is registering with us, we have to provide him like unique ID, no? Like the employee ID or the medical insurance ID or the registered ID, hospital register number, likewise. So each and every customer for our organization should be given with one unique ID. Or the transaction ID when we're talking about when we're comparing this with our earlier example. So when we're purchasing one laptop, we should be getting one transaction ID or the invoice number or the bill, no? So there should be one unique number for each and every transaction. So it might be purchasing a laptop or it might be registering with us. So for every action, there should be one work object ID created. So the work object ID creation is responsible by creating one rule called flow. So flow is nothing but a process where we can able to run all this. So the customer is coming and registering with us. What we will be doing? We will be just running one flow from our end. Flow meaning just running one work object ID from our end. So once the work object is running, we will be loading this section rule and we will be showing all the properties. And there he has to enter all his details. So clear so far? So in this whole process, what we have to do? We have to create one image rule. We have to create properties rule. We have to create section rule, and in order to take one action on this section, we have to create one flow action rule, and flow action rule is to be linked into this flow rule. So here we have to create 4 rules here. Clear? Uma, are you clear? I think Tulani will be having basic knowledge
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah, I'm clear.
So the process here is we have to create these many rules. Properties are to be created, section has to be created, flow action rule has to be created, and flow. So all these are considered as in rules only. So the registration, I mean the components what we are trying to create now, like properties or the sections. So this seems to be specific. This seems to be common, no? Where we can able to reuse this particular properties, no? So if the first name is one of the property which I created in the framework, I can able to reuse it in the implementation application today. And tomorrow, if there is any new implementation application coming, even there also we can able to reuse. So all these properties seems to be all these not only properties, all these rules seems to be much generic, where we can able to reuse this in other places also. So that's why we will be creating all these rules in framework, not in implementation. So you agree with this now? So in order to create any of the rules, first you have to identify the scope. So this seems to be much generic. So date of birth is one property where I can able to reuse it in the implementation application today, and tomorrow I can able to reuse it in the credit card section or the any other implementation section. Then you need not create the same property and again your compliance score will be reduced. We already discussed. So if we just create such property in framework, we can able to reuse it. Anyway, the type of inheritance there will be pattern only. Even if it is directed also, no problem, we can able to inherit. So let me create all these rules in the framework now. So the first thing what we have to do, we have to create the properties. Then we will be creating the section, then flow action rule, then flow rule. So if I run this flow rule, I can able to see the web registration form created for me. So this is the framework work class. This is the implementation work class. So now we are in a discussion of creating all this in framework work class. No? So just right click on the framework work class and go to the create. If you just mouse over on the create, we can able to see all the rule categories. So these are considered as in rule categories. And if we mouse over on particular rule category, we can able to see the corresponding rules. So all these are called as in rules and these are called as in rule categories. So here our intention is to create one property rule first. So property rule has to be created under data model rule category. So I'll be giving navigation for this in the step-by-step guide. You can follow that or you can able to refer the video as well. So under data model category, there will be one rule called property. So if we just click on the property, we can able to create one property rule. There are many ways of creating doing the same. I'll tell you all. So the first thing what we have to do is we have to give the first name property. So I'm giving like first name. So if you want to put capital F, it's up to you. Okay. So I have just entered the property name what I want to give. If we just tab out, if we just click on tab, or if we just come out of this particular text box, there is something called identifier that is automatically generated. Okay. As we are already discussing, ID for this particular rule and the display name both can be different. So if you want to make some changes here also, you can able to do that. If you want to put capital N also, you can able to do that. Now if you click on tab out, we can able to see the other value. There is no space here. Okay, the first name, I mean this is the label what is meant for user interface and this is meant for the processing. So PRPC will be using only this one value for this value for the processing, and this is for the just user interface. If we just click on tab out, this identifier will be automatically generated. Okay. So here we will be giving the name, and here there will be something called context. Context meaning this particular property is to be used on which application context. So by default we have implementation application selected here. So if I just click on save, I mean create and open, then this particular property will be created for the implementation application. So we have right clicked on this framework, that is secondary. This section is important. I mean this screen is very important. If you right click on this as well, we'll be getting the same screen. Whatever the selection we are making here, the rule will be created in the framework or implementation. Okay, so by default we will be having the topmost application like implementation. So if we are having 5 or 6 implementation applications also, by default we will be having the latest one. But here our intention is to create this first name property in my framework application. So if I create it in the framework, it can be reused for the multiple places. So for that, change the context to framework application. By default class will be changed. So if we select this, we have to change this, and by default we have framework only, no? And just click on create and open. We have to change the context, and we have to make sure whether this particular class is framework class or not. And you leave about this rule set as of now, I'll tell you later. Now just click on create and open. So this particular property has to be created in my framework application. That is my intention. So if we just create and open, we can able to see this rule created with this identifier. So this is the ID. This is the display name. Okay. So now here it is showing something like property type. Property type, it is showing something like text, and UI control is something like PX text input. So the first name property, what we want to put here, we want to put the text box only, no? Or if you want to change, if you want to put the checkbox, or if you want to put the drop downs or radio buttons, anything, any type of control what you want to put, that has to be decided here. So here it is showing like UI control. So what should be the user interface control? If you want to put the text box, we have to give it like text input. If you want to put the radio buttons, or if you want to put the drop downs or calendar, like this, whatever the control you want to put, that has to be selected here. So by default we will be having px meaning something like I'll tell you when we're working with px, py, pz, tz in this case. So suppose if you want to change this to radio buttons or the drop down, so px will be common here. Just click on drop and click on down arrow. As we already discussed, every text box which is having blue color mark at the bottom right will be considered as in drop down. So enter some values and click on down arrow. This is very important. Then we can able to see the suggested values. If I select this, if I just click on save, this first name property here will be showing like a drop down. Okay, but the control here we want to put like text box. No, by default we'll be having text input. We need not make any changes here. So text input, not the text area. So text area is for the bigger paragraphs. So you understood about this UI control, no? And there will be something like text also. So whatever this is for the user control. User control will be text input here. So whatever the data that is entered by the customer there. So inside text box, I will be entering one value like PEGA, let us say. So that PEGA value is to be considered as in text for me. So for the processing or anywhere, if you want to use that for the processing, we have to give the data type. I'll tell you about all this later, no worries. So whatever the thing the customer is entering in, that will be one of the text only, no? So that is the thing it is asking here. Suppose when we are creating one property for age, you will be understanding. Even for age also, we want to put the text box here. So there will not be change in the UI control. Control meaning how the control should be, text box only. But if I just enter some strings in that like PEGA, even for the age, if I enter PEGA, that is not the correct way. So there we have to change it to integer or string. So this is just for the user interface part, and this is just for the processing. So whatever the data that customer is entering, that should be of text only for this first name. So that's why I'm not changing anything here. So just click on save. So the first name property has been created. So if you want to just check for the property, what you have to do, that has to be created in this framework, no? This is created in the framework. So whatever the rules we create in this particular class, that has to be reflected here. If we just open this, automatically one data model rule category has been created. By default, that will not be there. So if you open any other class, there will be only sysadmin. There is nothing like data model. So we have created one property. Property will be under data model category. That's why this rule category is also showing. If we expand this, we can able to see the property here. So this property is one rule. Under property, we can able to see the first name as one of the instance. Instance is nothing but one record. So this rule category, data model rule category has been created now. And property is the rule name, rule, and this is the instance of. So I have to tell you one more thing here. So by default, we will not be having any of the rule categories. So we have not created any data model, sorry, we have not created any properties, or we have not created any section rule, nothing. We have not created anything as of now. You forget about this first name property. But PRPC will be showing one rule category called sysadmin. So for any of the class you create, there will be one thing called sysadmin. So sysadmin is nothing like, it will be showing the class information. So if I just open this, there is something called class. So if we just open this, it will be showing something. This and this both are same. So if I just click on that, I can able to see the screen what we have already seen. So this is something like definition of this particular class. No? So if you're just trying to right click and click on definition, the screen what we get, the same screen the same screen I'm getting here by just clicking on this. So sysadmin will be having all the information about that particular class. So if someone asks you, you can able to tell this. So if you expand this particular sysadmin rule category will be holding the information of this particular class group, not only class group, either class also it will be there. So if you just click, we'll be getting this. So why PRPC will be is giving two different ways of checking for the same. So this is one of the class group that PRPC has been created for us when creating one application. So if we just click on definition, we are getting this. So on this, I can able to create some other classes also. So if I create some other classes like sample, okay, why? Because this is one of the class that is already there, and we have created one one work class on top of this. PRPC has created, and we can able to create multiple classes also on top of the on the top of class groups. Okay, getting my point. So if I want to just check for this definition, if I want to just check for this definition, then if we just right click and same thing, if we just click on the definition, we'll be getting the same screen. Sorry. So what I was telling, so we can able to create many classes on top of the existing classes. We'll be working on this in coming classes. So if I want to just check for the definition of that particular class, I can able to do that. So in that case, if I cannot able to check for the definition of this implementation class group. You getting my point? As Umar Tolani?
So whenever we want to create any classes, we have to go there under the classes, then right click on it and we can work on it,
Yeah.
right?
So this is just meant for checking the definition of this particular class. So instead of we going on this particular class and clicking on right clicking and going on definition, we can directly click on this. So if I just want to check for the definition of this particular framework class group, what we have done earlier, we have just a right click and clicked on definition. Now there is another approach also of doing the same. So if we expand this, there will be something called sysadmin rule category. Expand that, and here we will be having the same class definition. Just click on that, we can able to see the same definition of this particular class. So why PRPC is giving two different ways, meaning we can able to create another classes on top of this. When we're working on that, we'll be understanding. So if you want to just check for the definition of this, we'll be getting the definition of that particular class, not about this class. So you may not understand this as of now. So you got this point, no? So as of now, we can able to check for the definition of this class in two ways. So just right click on this particular class and click on definition. We can able to see the definition of this. And if we expand this, there will be something called sysadmin. By default, this particular rule category will be created automatically. So here data model is the rule category what we have created manually, but sysadmin rule category will be created automatically. That is the point I want to highlight it now. So when we are working in creation of new classes, then you will be understanding clearly. So if I tell you also, you will not understand now. So we have created one first name property now. Expand this. So this is one of the instance, like one of the record of this particular property. So the next thing what we have to do, we have to create last name property. The same thing. So right click on this particular class group, create data model and definition. Sorry, property. So I'm giving something like last name. So identifier will be automatically coming. So context is also there. Context is also with framework now. I need not make any changes here. So just click create and open. So now even here also I need not make any changes. Last name is also one of the text box UI control for me, and the data should be of text input only. So I need not make any changes. Just click on save. So if we refresh this, we can able to see. This will not be updated automatically. App Explorer will never be updated automatically. You have to manually refresh this App Explorer. So if you want to refresh only this particular class, right click and click on refresh this. So Tulani, you know all these concepts, creation of these properties.
Yeah.
So we'll be getting two instances here, first name and last name property. And the next thing what we have to create is we have to create age property. So I'll show you another way of creating properties. So if we have any of the rule opened, and if we want to create same kind of rule, then what we can able to do, we can able to just go to actions and click on create. So this is one property rule, and I want to create another property rule. So go to the actions of this particular property rule and click on create. So another property rule has to be created. I want to give like age, identifier has to come out. So here the control should be text input only. And here I should not be giving customer to enter the text values. I want to enter him like only integers or the numbers. So just to select integer here. Integer will be accepting only numbers. So by default it will be accepting negative values also. That's the concept of integer, and we will have to restrict that by using some validations that we'll discuss later. So integer property type has been changed, and now click on save. So next thing is gender. For gender we have to put the drop downs. Now you can able to use this. You can able to just click on actions and create. Next thing what we can able to do is we can right click on this class group, that is what we have seen. And another thing is we can directly right click on the rule category. Just right click on the data model. If you want to create any of the rule under this data model, you can able to see all the rules related to that particular data model rule category. Click on property, and I want to create here like gender. So no changes required. So here I want to put the drop down values. So for drop down, control should be drop down now. So erase this and click on down arrow. We'll be seeing all the controls by default. So start typing with down, drop. We'll be getting one suggested value like px drop down. So px drop down is one of the control where you can able to add drop down values. So this will be the control, and what are the values we enter, either male or female, that should be of text input only. So by default I need not make any changes here. So if it is a number, we will be changing that to integer, and this is text only. No, this is for the processing. PRPC will be considering this male value or a female value as a text only. That is what we are specifying here. And for the drop down values, by default there should be some value specified. So for that, go to the table type and click on local list. So here I want to give the values what I want to select. Okay, so just click on save. So even this will be created. So you can able to just refresh the app explorer. You can able to do it from this arrow also. So if we just click on arrow, we'll be getting refresh option. So just open this. The data model, we have to get 4 instances. So all these properties are created under this framework class. So the next thing what we have to create, we have to create one date of birth. Let us go in particular order. So you can able to create on this particular, can able to right click on this rule also. So the first thing is we can able to right click on this particular class. Even if we go that approach also, the selection what we are trying to make will not be applicable. So let me right click on this implementation work class. Even though if I want to create it in my framework, I'm trying to right click on this implementation work class. Why? Because the selection, I mean, from wherever we are trying to click create, that will not be applicable there. I'll show you. I'm trying to create one property. So here context is important. If I'm trying to just change the context, this particular class has to be created in this framework work class only. So the context is important. You can able to do the same from this action create category also. So from wherever we are creating, that is not important. What is the context we are selecting, that is very important. So whatever the rule we want to create in PRPC, we can able to use this create option. Under create option, we'll be getting all the rule categories here. So if I want to create one property, the same thing, go to data model and click on property. So here by default, we are not getting any of the class populated. Why? Because this is across the application level. I mean, this is across the whole organization level. So our organization may have multiple classes, no? So PRPC will not be knowing in which class it has to be created. That's why it will not be suggesting any of the class here. So if we just right click on this one, we'll be getting applies to classes, this one. And this is the screen where we are trying, we got, no? So if I just right click on this implementation class, I got this screen. So by default, we'll be getting some of the class specified here. But in this case, if you are trying to use this option, we will not be getting any class here. We should be giving it manually. So let me do it here as well. So we have to give the class. For giving the class, so just click on view all and start typing our class name. So chg framework, it will be populating. So if we create it here, it will be reflecting in this one. Why? Because the context what we are giving is very important. From where we are just right clicking, that is not the matter. Okay. So these are all the different ways of creating properties, but in real time, we will not be using this approach. Why? Because here in this process, we are trying to create multiple properties. So the first name is one property, last name, age, gender. Likewise, we are creating multiple properties. So if you want to create multiple properties at a time, what usually will follow is, wherever in which class if you want to create, just right click and click on view in data designer. So Uma, as of now, you clear now? Uma and Tolani?
Yes, sure.
Uma, you,
Clear.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me show it over there. Okay. So right now we have created 4 properties here, and I'm trying to create one gender property. Right now I'm using the same approach. So in this process, what I'm trying to create one property from this create option. So give the gender and click on create and open. It's already created. Okay. So the next thing what we want to put is date of birth. Sorry. So identifier has to come. So just create and open. So you want to put it like date. So here the control should be like date time. Okay, so in for date of birth we should be we should be showing the calendar only. We should not be restricting the user to enter the text value like PEGA or anything. So that should not be acceptable. So for that we have to use one control called date time, px date time. Okay, and the property type will be changed to date, not the text. So just click on save. And the next property is mail ID and mobile number. I'm trying to create one more like mail. So that should be text input only. I'm saving this. Mail is also created, and now I want to create mobile number. So create. So mobile number, if you want to put the integer also, you can able to put that. So usually we will be having one OOTB like PX phone. For that, we will not be using that usually. Why? Because in some of the countries they will be accepting plus and brackets also. Special symbols also will be acceptable as a mobile number. But in India, we will be having only 10-digit number. Starting, some will be having starting with 0, some will be having starting with +1, and some will be having some space after this 91. Likewise, so there will be many formats for the mobile number. So that's why PRPC will not be giving particular restrictions for that. We have to restrict all this via validations only. Okay, so we'll work on that later, validation part. So as of now, what we have done, we have created properties. So we have created these many properties. So let me refresh it and show it here. So we got all these properties now. So once the properties are created, we have to put it in one container. That technically we call this as a section. So one section rule has to be created. So section rule will be created under user interface section. So just right click and go to create. This is what we have used for the property creation, and at the last there will be something called user interface. So if you mouse over on that, we will be getting all the rules related to that. So this is the section, so just click on that section. So here we have to give the section rule name. For every rule we have to give the name. I'm giving something like custard details section. So this is just for our understanding. So I'm not changing the context. This is in the framework only. Click on create and open. So this is the section rule. So section rule will be having all the properties. So we can able to see it here. So drop any number of properties or sections. So this is what we are seeing. So by default, when we are creating one section rule, it will be showing one dynamic layout. By default, at least one dynamic layout should be there. So without we creating any dynamic layout also, it will be having a one by default. So here what it is showing, it is asking us to drop any number of properties. So whatever the properties we have created, we have to drop it here. So first what I want to do, I want to put some first name property. So just click on the 6 dots. So this is the property rule now. Beside this there will be 6 dots. So if you mouse over on that, cursor pointer will be changed. So just click on that and drag it to this dynamic layout. You will be getting this orange color border highlighted. Then you have to drop it. Okay. So next what you have to do, I want to put like last name. Again the same process. So mouse over on the 6 dots, drag and drop it here. Wherever you want, you can able to drag it, drop it. Okay. So the next one I want to put like age and date of birth, and I want to put the gender and the mail ID and the mobile. Okay, so this is how our section rule will be looking like. And here if you want to apply some styles meaning first name and last name both should be side by side. Right now we are this is the dynamic layout. In this dynamic layout we are having only one property or one control in a row. If you want to make it 2 in a row or 3 in a row, even that is possible. So for that, what we have to do, this is the dynamic layout, no? So we have to make some changes to this layout. Layout is having only one control at a time, I mean in one row. Now I want to put 2 or 3 controls in this particular dynamic layout. So for that, you click on this gear icon of this particular dynamic layout. If you click on the gear icon, we will be getting some options like layout format. So in this layout format, by default, it is showing something like default. And if we click on that, we'll be having multiple options. So inline double grid, inline grid double, inline grid triple. So if I select this and click on submit button, I can able to see these options 2 by 2. Okay, so each property is occupying 50% space. So if you are not following this, sorry, if you want to achieve the same with other technologies, it will be taking minimum of 1 hour of time. If you want to make it 3 in a row, just go click on here and select this inline grid triple. Now we should be getting 3 in a row. So this is how we can able to make this CSS styling also very easy. So now we are done with this dynamic layout settings and section rule has been created, and just click on save. Okay. So now the next thing is we have to create one flow action rule. So this should be created under user interface model, sorry, user interface category, and this is under data model category. And now flow action has to be created under process category. So there will be one category called process. So right click on this particular class group, create, this is the rule category, and click on flow action. So one flow action rule has to be created now. So just click on flow action. I'm giving something like customer details flow action just for understanding. So I'm just clicking on create and open. As I told you, this flow action rule is meant for holding the section. So this is the section what we have created, and this section has to be linked to flow. No, flow meaning creation of work object only. So this particular flow action has to be linked to the section. So this is the flow action rule, and in this flow action rule, it is asking for the section name. So which section this particular rule has to be holding. So that is the information it is asking. So here we have to give the section name. So this is the section name, and the section name has to be given to this flow action. So just click on that control and click on down arrow. This is the drop down now. We'll be getting, PRPC will be prompting all the sections which are created so far in that particular class. Okay, if we create 10 sections, 10 sections should be appearing here. Just click on enter, that will be populating here, and click on save. That's it, flow action rule will be created. So the next thing is we have to create one flow rule. Flow meaning creation of work object only, no? So even flow rule will be created under data model, sorry, under process category. So if we just check here, there is no user interface section created and there is no process category appearing. So for that we have to just refresh it. So now we should be seeing this data model category for creation of properties, and we have created at least one rule under process category. That is what it is showing here, and we have created one section rule for this user interface. Even that category is being shown here. So now what I'm trying to say, we have to create one flow rule. Flow rule has to be created under process category. So right click on that rule category, or you can able to right click on the class also and click on flow. So it will be asking for the rule name. I'm giving something like claims flow. So this is the claims registration form now. I'm giving something like claims flow and click on create and open. So this is responsible for creating the work object ID or the transaction ID. Okay. So whenever we create one flow rule, we will be getting by default these three shapes. So this will be considered as a start shape. This will be considered as an end shape. So in order to create the work object ID or the transaction ID, only this rule is responsible, flow rule. So within this flow rule, we will be linking one flow action rule, and flow action rule is already linked with section rule, and that section rule is already linked with properties. That is secondary now. So if I want to register, if you want to show this registration form, or if I want to show one work object ID created, first thing is we have to we have to execute this rule. So this rule will be loading all other rules. So here this is with green color circle is called as a start shape, and this is the end shape, and in between we can able to have multiple rectangular shapes. This will be considered as an assignment shape. So between start shape and end shape we can able to have multiple shapes. So the green color assignment shape is responsible for holding the section. So wherever we have this green color assignment shape, there we need to get some kind of input from the customer. So that is the expectation. So this is the section what we have created now. In this section we have to get some information from the customer. Okay, that section has to be linked here. I mean the flow action section is linked to flow action, and that flow action rule has to be linked to this flow rule. So wherever we see green color assignment shape, that is meant for loading one section or the flow action. So in order to link one flow action rule into this flow rule, double click on the outward connector. So for this assignment shape there are two connectors. This is inward connector and this is outward connector. So double click on the outward connector, and under flow action we have to link it. By default we will be getting the name, the rule, I mean the flow name what we have given, that is not true. Erase that and click on down arrow. So if we just click on down arrow, we can able to see all the flow action rules which are created. So just to select that and click on submit. Okay, so there will be many flow shapes. We'll discuss about this later. So right now what we have to, right now our expectation is we have to run one, we have to show this particular registration page to the customer. So only one shape is enough for me. I mean one assignment shape meaning one section is enough for me. So work object will be starting from the start shape. It will be going to this assignment shape. Here it will be loading the flow action. Flow action will be loading the section. Section will be loading all the properties, and it will be displaying there. So once user enter all these details and click on submit button, work object, I mean the transaction will be moved from this particular step to end shape. So wherever it reaches, work object reaches to the end shape, transaction is completed. Okay. So now we have linked the flow action rule also. So in order to see the output what we have created so far, what we have to do, we have to go to actions and click on run. So by default there is no run here. So but in order to see these changes, we have to run this flow. So before that we have to make few changes. So let me save as of now. So we have to run this flow. That is our next challenge. So before that there will be something called process tab here. So this is the diagram tab where we have made all the changes, and similarly there will be something called process tab. So if we just click on the process tab, so sometimes it will be getting stuck up, then you have to refresh this. So now go to process tab. Under process tab, under process tab you have to make two changes. The first thing is you have to mark this checkbox, create a new work object. I'll tell you the importance of this. And the next change is you have to change the work parties to, you can able to see, no, by default work parties is kept to default. You have to change this to, erase this and click on down arrow. You have to change this to PY case management default. I'll tell you why in tomorrow's class. So select this PY case management default. So you clear now? So go to the process tab and mark this checkbox. So if we mark this checkbox only, whenever we run this flow, one new work object ID will be created. So without creating the work object ID or the transaction ID, we cannot run the business. I cannot able to get the laptop without I getting the bill from them. So transaction ID, whatever the thing they're doing in their computer, for that one work object ID or the transaction ID will be created. That has to be responsible for generating the bill. The same concept here. So if the customer is registering with us, we have to run this flow, and this flow has to execute one work object ID. that is the unique ID. So if we just mark this only, one unique ID will be created, and you change the work parties to PY case management default. I'll tell you this in tomorrow's class. So now just to save. First thing what you have done, we have made changes to this. We have added our flow action. Next thing is you have to make few changes in the process tab. Now we will be getting this run option. So earlier run option is not there. So if you are not selecting this, run option will not be applicable. So you cannot able to run this flow without creating the work object ID. That is true, no? So if you mark this only, we will be having this work object, with this run option applicable. Else you cannot able to get this run option. So let me run this as of now here. I will explain this flow rule again tomorrow. I'll explain about the draft mode, about this run option, PY case management default, and how to upload the image. Tomorrow we'll see. Now let me run the flow as of now. So the thing what we have done is, this is the flow rule. Go to actions and click on run. So if I click on run, this particular flow rule has to be executed, and this flow rule has to load the flow action what we are connecting here, and this flow action has to load the section, and that section has to load the properties. So that is what we are seeing here. And this is the unique object ID, unique work object ID. So we have marked this checkbox now. So if we mark this checkbox, one unique work object ID has to be created, and this is the unique work object ID C268. This is the unique work object ID that is created, and this can be considered as a transaction ID, or this, or if you want to change this, you can able to do that. This is the unique work object ID, and this is the screen what we have created. So this is the first name, this is the last name. So I'm trying to enter some strings here. It is not accepting. Sorry. So you can able to see my screen now. So I'm trying to enter some strings here. It is not accepting. Why? Because we have given this control as integer. So it should be accepting only integer value.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and here in date of birth, we should be getting calendar. So these all because of the controls, text control, UI control what we are selecting. So for this we have given date 10. Here we should be getting only calendar. And for the gender we have given drop down. We should be getting only drop down values. So this is what we can able to design. Usually people will be putting one big banner kind of image here. Then after they will be loading all these controls. In tomorrow's class, we will see how to load the banner. How to upload the image. Then we'll be putting some, we'll be explaining about this flow rule. There are some more things to be discussed in this flow rule about this PY case management default, and about this one, about the draft mode. Why are we getting this error, yellow color error? We'll discuss all this. And why are we getting this work object ID as this one? We have not given anything like C here. We have not defining anything. We are not giving any number like 268. Why are we getting this? We'll discuss all this tomorrow. So you clear so far?
And and one more thing, how to debug if error comes? So where is the option we need to go and look over there?
Yeah, there are many. There are many debugging tools here. Based on the situation, we have to use those. So sometimes we will be using tracer, sometimes we will be using clipboard and live UI. So based on the situation, based on the type of error, we have to load that. We have to use that. I'll explain this.
Okay. Okay.
So these are all the rules we have created, and tomorrow we'll see how to use the image rule. That is binary rule. So Tulani, do you know how to upload the image?
Oh, actually, I have done it, but I don't remember now.
Yeah, no problem. So you clear now, both of you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm clear. And Chanda, I have one query, like whatever you are teaching, right, pattern, inheritance, and then so these are all the parts you have a theory notes, right? So every class, can you update with the theory notes also, so
Yeah,
that we will learn it.
Yeah, I'm sending you the documents as well, no? So in that you will be having practical as well as the theory.
Yeah, we can find it with the 1 or 2 lines, right? Like yesterday's, I have seen like inheritance. That is enough for interview point of view.
They will be mostly asking you in in the scenario based.
Scenario.
They will not be asking you what is
Okay.
pattern and what is directed. You have to explain the things what we are trying to discuss now. So if we just check for the definition, there will be seeing one class called, there will be seeing one class, and that will be considered as a parent. And if you want to change that, so in this way, if you kind of explain, if you try to explain, it will be convincing for them, and it will be something like you have practical experience. They'll be getting some kind of impression. So they will not be expecting the
Okay.
theory how we do it in our BTech or somewhere. I just
Okay.
wanted to give you one line of theory, just for your recalling. That's it. Based
So
on the
just
class.
they will ask everything with the implementation part, how we will work on with the PRPC
Yes, yes.
platform.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So they will not be asking you direct theory based questions. You have to explain as if like you are having some practical experience. Then
Okay.
only it will be convincing for them.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever they ask, you try to explain the discussion what we are having. You consider this is our real-time project, and you can able to explain by imagining this. Then you
Okay.
can be confident enough, and they can also understand that you have some practical experience.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. So tomorrow also we'll meet the same time. Thank you.
Thank
That's
Yes.
you.
it, no? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Mm.
Yeah.